Hello, welcome to the Honest Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob, and it's not Tuesday, but it is our stat show live in the Honest Wargamer studio. There's me, and we're going to be looking at all the stats from Adepticon, the Justice Series GT, and also we'll be looking at the meta breakdown for the Ansat Cup. But it wouldn't be the stat show without the computer machine himself, Mr. LLV. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you, Rob?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you very much. I've got a little bit of a cold, so if I do any sneezing, I apologise. But I'm very excited to look at the stats from this week. Obviously, I was at Adepticon. I know that there was a 42-man event here in the UK as well, along with that 188-man in Adepticon event. And then also this weekend, we got the Ansat Cup. So there's quite a lot of Age of Sigmar to talk about, especially as we're on 3 battle. I mean, like this year alone, we've already had 4 battle tomes out, right? So it's going to be shaking up the numbers left, right, and centre. So I'm excited to see what they've actually done.
Yeah, and we've got some blasts from the past in here as well, which is really cool. When all these new stuff's coming out, all these old armies doing good as well.
Yeah, I agree. And then we've also got our sneaky pick, the army that we've been talking about constantly on the stat show, again showing their flavour, and they had a bit of a reveal at Adepticon as well. So what's scary is a bit like Flesh Eater Corpse before under Bill Souza, Hostess Slanesh still doing well, and then they've got a battle tome coming out at some point.
Yeah. I think every week we've said, look how well Hostess Slanesh has done again. And last week at the Justice GT, they took first place. So should we just jump right into the events then?
Absolutely. So you have, if I've got this right, before we even do that, thank you so much to everyone, both on Twitch and on Patreon, for supporting the show. If you guys like this as a podcast or as a YouTube video, please hit like and subscribe. Also share it with people as well. The stats really help people manage their games and understand how well they should be doing, or maybe they could be doing, or even just it gives them an opportunity to defeat the stats, which is, I think, always encouraging to do. So let everyone know about it. That'd be cool. Thanks very much. Sorry about that. I just forgot. I forgot my bucket speech. Okay, so Armacon was in Norway, and Siege of Malmo. Are these the new things that we've added?
Yeah, so everything, if people are following along at home, see all the stats on the honest-wargamer.com under the stats tab. We're looking at all the events we've logged for Age of Sigmar 2.2 up to date, which would be everything after the last FAQ at the end of December. So the last stat show we did, we was looking at things like the South Australian GT, SAGT, Fall of the Old World. This week we've got 5 new events added to the stats. We've got Armacon in Norway, Siege of Malmo from Sweden. They were both a couple of weeks ago, but we've retrospectively added the numbers in now. Last weekend we saw the Justice GT and Adepticon. So yeah, if you want to lead off with the Armacon there in sunny Norway.
Yeah, Norway keeping it real. Daughters of Cain in first place, Maggot, Kin of Nurgle, and Legions of Nagash in third. So Maggot, Kin of Nurgle in second. Nice seeing Nurgle get a place up there as well. Again, they're really good at objective play, the Maggot Kin of Nurgle, realistically. And it all depends on the scenarios, right? We don't know the list, but we need to get the list. But if it's something like Thricefold and it's lots of scenarios or battle plans, that require heroes and magicians, that could be good. But Daughters of Cain just absolutely kicking it as well. Daughters of Cain, arguably, I would say still way better than Flesh Eaters. And Skaven, does Skaven give them a run for their money? It's a great question. But those daughters just absolutely just wipe so many things out. And they haven't. I'm really hoping for some points increases on the witches at some point, but they're still the threat that they've always been, in my opinion.
Yeah, they're still running a very, very close to 70% win ratio. That's across all of Age of Sigmar, and if you specifically look at AOS 2.2, so they're still up there, which we will see. Flesh Eater Courts, oddly enough, since the new book, are running around the same kind of win percentages, but a lot of Daughters players do fancy their chances in conversations with them against Flesh Eaters. They've got a lot of shenanigans like the 6-inch pile-in, and they've just got all those mortal wound saves as well. 5+ re-rolling. If you've got any daughters left after the flesh eaters have hit you first, you can usually put out enough damage to take down a dragon or two, right? So
yeah, especially with those 4-up saves, like weighted dice really just goes through the dragons, in my opinion. So you're right. If there are any units left, or even if they could just pile in with some other units, right, then they're in a solid place. 6-inch pile-ins are a thing. Daughters Kane, sweet, good job, Norway, keeping it real. Sweden at the Siege of Malmo, Flesh Eater Courts up there again, mixed order, and a bit of Sylvaneth, cheeky Sylvaneth landing in there, 30 players. That's quite cool. Sylvaneth in a solid place. They play well. Ball control, a lot of first turns always with the Sylvaneth. But it's one of those things where, in my opinion, you play Sylvaneth well or you don't play them well at all. And they either win. They win consistently hard. I think you can play Sylvaneth badly at this stage.
Yes, yeah, and we see with Sylvaneth, especially on the UK scene, that there are very prominent players that always do well with them. They'll always do, at least 3 and 2, usually 4 and 1. So across the wider stats, you see Sylvaneth getting a lot of, 1 win, 2 wins, and as you said, they're not an easy you can just pick up and throw into people's faces. There's a lot of finesse about them, and they're so fragile, right?
They are. A lot of area denial with those. Mixed order. I'd be excited to see what's in that list. I assume there's going to be some Phoenixes.
I've seen the list. It's mainly dwarfs. It's mainly dispossessed.
Really?
It is, yeah. It's actually a Tempest. It's running under the Tempest Eye, which I think is the Firestorm Allegiance that gives you an extra movement.
It is.
And then it's a ton of dwarves, and I believe a high elf dragon as well.
Wow. Okay. All right. That's cool. Dragon Lord kicking it. And Flesh Eater Court's taking it away there, which is good. I think it's going to be a repeated theme for the next several months, in my opinion. Until at least the General's Handbook, I think Flesh Eater Courts are going to consistently do well. I know we do have some stats to show that they didn't do well in some cases, but they are just such a cakewalk of an army. They are forgiving as an army, but if there's enough shooting entered into the game, maybe they'll drop off, and then Skaven will sit as the best battle tome in the game, as they are, in my opinion.
Yeah. Skaven do have that learning curve. I think Skaven are going to follow more. I think so. Compared to Flesh Eater.
I disagree.
Compared to Flesh Eater Court.
It's not that hard rolling 2 dice.
Oh, okay. Well, we've seen from results that either people are not taking that spell or using it wrong then, because
and actually that would be my experience of Adepticon anecdotally, but also just generally, I tend to find a lot of people don't take a lot of endless spells, and they're just absolutely missing a trick. I mean, I played some people who are very competent with their armies, but they didn't really know what Geminids did, and I'm like, if you're at the stage where you're not sure what Geminids are doing, you're not at the stage of playing, you're not going to be able to know what faction-specific endless spells are going to do to you.
Right.
And everyone out there, if you're listening, if you're a fan of the stats and you want to play Warhammer better, in my opinion, go grab a bunch of endless spells, make your army a lot worse, and just play with a bunch for a while, and then just practice with them. And you will see the huge impact they're going to have in your games. Giant.
Yeah.
I probably won 2 of my games flat just because of endless spells. Just their inclusion in the game this weekend. So just huge. So yeah, I think Skaven are better for that reason. But talking about an army that doesn't have endless spells, a battle tome, or anything new apart from a bunch of new models coming out, the Hosts of Slaanesh won a 42-man event in the UK, the Justice Series GT. Again, we've talked about them all the time, right?
Yeah, we can see them popping up here in these, if you look back over the events, they've been doing well as far as win percentages go. They've always been hovering around that 4-1 mark, and this is the first 5-0. So really, really happy for the guy there. He's been a staunch Slaanesh player for a long time. So I think he'd said the Justice Series GT did some interviews that you can find on YouTube, and I think he actually said that he was happy to get the elusive 5-0 before the new book came out.
Yeah, that's excellent news. Shame we don't remember. We haven't got his name, but good job, young man. Very proud of you there. I think like we've said, that they've been slowly creeping up here and there. I still think 3 mammoths in a Host of Slanesh army is a thing. That could be really cool. But yeah, going 5-0 is great. They've got so much summoning they can put on the board. And again, a conversation I had last night actually on the Everchosen podcast, if you guys ever want to go and listen to that show, we just talked about summoning and its late game potential to win tournaments, win games and thus tournaments, because, people have to move stuff off objectives, especially when they've got limited resource armies, like Daughters of Cain as an example. Eventually they have to move units away from the board, and then turns 3-4, if you can put 10 of something or 20 of something somewhere, you can win whole games because they can go and outnumber objectives, right? And
that's what's nice about the Slanesh summoning. Michael Wilson is the fellow that did
well
the
done, Mike.
Also,
Michael. He might want Michael. Well done. That's excellent work.
Well done. Yeah,
he should be really proud.
He played in the Masters, the North Mid UK Masters.
Oh, the Masters.
The Masters, yeah.
Not the Masters. The Masters.
The Masters. My Canadian accent.
Accent What's that all about? What's that all about?
I don't know. So he played there as well. So he's been using this Slanesh list for a long time. I think the added new thing he's been playing with are the fiends. He's got a big block of 6 fiends in this new build. And what you were saying about like trading off and resilience, the nice thing about the Slaneshi summoning is it's actually based on things dying, right? So when things start doing those wounds to your big units, that's when you start getting those units back.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I say that all the time. I could agree with you a little bit. Yeah, no, that is good. It's a good mechanic, absolutely. But it's only in close combat, right?
It's only close combat. It's only heroes. So wounds caused by or to heroes. But it does mean you can park a keeper or an exalted keeper's secrets on an objective and let people come to you. They have to fight you.
If they have fighting.
Kill them if they have fighting, yeah. I guess they could shoot you.
Yeah.
Which we'll see going forward here.
Yeah,
becoming a theme.
I think that's going to be our ongoing theme. Flesh Eater Court's also going 5-0 at that event, I assume.
Yes.
In second place.
And that is second place, Tony Moore. The only reason he finished second, one of his wins was a minor over another Flesh Eater Court's player.
Yes. Okay. So mirror matches are always really fun. But that's tough. And then Daughters of Cain again showing that they're still in it to win it. Almost when you don't see Daughters of Cain in there, you're like, oh, where are they? And then you go a couple down, and there they are. They sneak in. But that's a nice mix between those 3 events. I mean, Daughters of Cain twice, but then everything else. Flesh Eater Courts is in there. Sylvaneth Order, Maggot King, Legions, Hosts. That's quite cool. There's that nice mix-up. And then Adepticon, 188 players. Sam absolutely destroyed the stats with his Seraphon. And we do have an interview with him on the honest-wargamer YouTube if you want to go and check out the chat with him. A really nice man. And he went 5-0 with Seraphon. But then also, Adam did with Skaven in second place as well. And I'm almost certain Legions and Nagash went 5-0 as well.
Yeah. I think the thing to mention about Sam's Seraphon win is he was the only true 5-0 as far as 5 max wins. So although Adepticon, we will disclaimer this, it is very heavily weighted regarding soft scores. And what we mean by soft scores would be things like painting and sportsmanship and secondaries and tertiary things happening on the table. Sam is a true winner of that event as far as he's the only one that went 5-0 without any minor wins. So that's always good to see.
Yeah, I would actually also like to double down and say both the secondaries and the tertiaries in the pack to help achieve were great little additions to the game.
Mm-hmm.
To play through. That was really fun. It was really nice adding those in a mix. I mean, well, we did a show on the secondaries before, and they really are win-win, and lose-lose. So if you are already winning the game, you're pretty much always guaranteeing that you're going to do the secondaries that you've chosen. But But that said, it was nice clutching a couple of points back from secondaries on games that you lost, or it was still nice trying to get those tertiaries. I did enjoy it. It reminded me of Age of Sigmar way back at the beginning when we used to always have 5 secondaries. So we always had the core mission and 5 secondaries, which is really showing my Age of Sigmar age there. But I welcome it, and it's a good addition. I do wish that we'd have had the pack out instead of on the morning. That would have been a little bit more preferable, just to learn what the tertiaries were, instead of like an extra 10 or so minutes spent at the start of the game to learn. But yeah, very, very cool. And then it really does showcase the players who did win the event, their opportunity cost adapting to that environment where they were just given a pack and then they learned it all on the fly and achieved those aims, right?
Yeah, and it's just surprising. Seraphon, like the biggest event so far in Age of Sigmar 2. Second biggest behind CanCon, biggest event in North America, and Seraphon takes it down. That's incredible. So.
Yeah, no, it is really, really good, and Sam's got to be absolutely chuffed as well. Like, and we had a long talk before, and like we said, we did an interview afterwards, and Skinks are that clutch unit he talked about constantly, and also mobility. The mobility that Seraphon have is really strong. They've arguably got one of the weakest summoning mechanics in the game because they have to give up spellcasting in order to achieve their summoning. But almost, I think that gives them a way of concentrating on other. They also have no command abilities to speak of as well that anyone cares about. So you really do have kind of like 2 resources, both spellcasting and command points, that you aren't invested in heavily in achieving.
Right.
And it also almost means that like you're concentrating on playing the game and scoring the objective points to a degree. But I personally think that Sam just did a smasher, to be honest, and he played some great games. And also getting a Stormcast on Total Commitment is always a bit of a joy, right?
Yeah. Always.
So big shout out there. Skaven, again, showing their face. Lisa Nagash. Now, it's not on here, and I know we're going to do the Adepticon breakdown in a minute, but did you see my interview with Rodrigo, a young gentleman who went 4-1 with the Corn Dragon, only losing his 5th game on round 5?
Yeah, I did. That was fantastic. He's such a superstar, that guy.
He also did the same at LVO. Now, I'm not saying that we should make a specific Corn Dragon chart, but obviously it's all tied in with Blades of Corn. Or is it just called Corn now? Is it called the
Blades of Corn, I think.
The Blades of Corn. But still, I personally would consider that army to be a one-faction army. It's the Dragon army, right?
Basically, yeah.
Basically. And he's gone 4-1 at 2 events, so I personally think that's pretty massive.
Yeah, it's not easy to play with when what is it, 1,200 points of your army is tied up in a dragon that has a base so big that you can only move like 2 inches a turn or something.
Yeah, and also the fact that it's it's 800 points more than a dragon that can one-shot it in that Gawking on Terror guy. So,
man.
Yeah, but I got to say, massive congratulations again to Sam with the Seraphon. He's got to be chuffed. I know he's chuffed because I spoke to him. He used to play lots of 40k as well. So, he must be really, really pleased, and as he should be, which is cool. Good. You happy with that?
Yeah, good. Let's go.
Winner's Circle.
Yeah. So here's AOS 2.2's Winner's Circle. What I did is I included, for people following all at home, you can see what last week's looked like compared to this week's. So we can see some of those changes happening as well. So like we had last time we did the stat show, Legions of Nagash are at the top. Flesh Eaters just behind them. They've both had the same number of first places at this point in AOS 2.2, even though Flesh Eater Corpse as a new book has only been out getting on maybe a month at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And we can see Hosts of Slaanesh have jumped up in the table along with Daughters of Cain.
I love that Slaanesh is there. They're our little faction, I think, at this stage, LLV. Yeah. They're our kind of like, we've tracked them from the beginning. Well, you've tracked them and then I've commented on it, but they are just slowly sneaking their way up. And what's nice is their ascendancy before the book.
Yeah, what's really strange as well is when and people have even asked me, they're like, what is it about AOS 2.2 specifically? Why House of Slanesh are all of a sudden doing well? Because they were just nowhere to be seen really pre-Christmas time. So nothing's really changed though. Like the FAQ didn't really make massive changes to the game. I think maybe just a combination of what the meta has done around them and that small release they got around Christmas time with um, the double box set. I forget its name, but
Wrath
the
and
one with
Rapture.
Corn.
I would say,
Wrath and Rapture.
yeah,
Yeah.
I personally would say that Wrath and Rapture is like a Kickstarter for playing it. But realistically, the game's a combat game, right? Or has been,
Yes.
for since 2.1, and so the adaptability is very much how my army works, and a lot of the other army works as well. My Chaos Dwarf army, for instance, doesn't particularly work if you don't get within 20 inches. But I can guarantee that almost every army in the game at the minute is going to get within 20 inches of me because they want to punch me in the face.
Yeah.
And therefore I can shoot them in the face. And Slanesh is doing a very similar thing. It's why the people have to really, and as we've seen this weekend, and as we're going to touch on later, in order to beat the Flesh Eater Courts, because of the Always Strikes First mechanic, you can't actually fight them.
Yeah,
and
so that's where, again, going back to Michael's interview, he set up the army very much to beat Flesh Eaters. He's got a lot of command traits that let him pile in that 6 inches. So he can kind of bait and then pile in with, say, an Exalted Keeper, which can easily one-shot a dragon. And the dragon doesn't even get to fight, even if it doesn't one-shot, because of the way the mechanic works with being at the start of the combat phase.
Who's taking that, though?
With what?
Like
the House of Slanesh?
No, I mean, who's taking that? Who's charging their Terrorgeist, into their opponent's army and allowing the keeper to pile it in 6 inches? Like,
oh yeah, I mean, there's
who's letting that happen?
That's where the gamesmanship happens, though, right? Like
stupidity.
Stupidity, yeah. Slanesh is so fast moving, though.
Yeah. If the Slanesh guy's getting there, then fine, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a gambit where they're baiting them out and then they're being piled into. I think it's where the Slanesh models are moving to that place and then piling 6 inches. I think that's more likely the scenario. Otherwise, it's down to the other player playing badly as opposed to.
It's going to be a combination of all in reality, right? Especially a lot of people, I'd say a lot of newer players have been picking up Flesh Eater Courts just because of the power level as well. So you're always going to get those.
Because it's so dry brushable. Oh, baby, you can dry brush that to heck.
Yeah, 3 starter boxes and the dry brush is that.
If that's one build.
Build an army.
Yeah, that's one build. Although both the armies I played at the weekend were beautiful. So mad props to those guys. But I love that Host Nation popped up. Daughters of Cain again, pushing their way up there. Legions of Nagash. I think people have got Legions of Nagash pegged at this stage.
Yeah, we're not seeing as much representation in some of the tournaments as well. The Justice Series, again, only had like 2 Legions of Nagash players out of 42 people, which is a huge drop-off from a usual. You'd expect maybe 4 or 5, traditionally, a 40-person event of Legions. So they've dropped off. A lot of their numbers on this chart have come from the start of AOS 2.2, which is what makes Flesh Eaters so interesting.
Which is from November time, if you guys are interested.
Exactly, yeah. It's what makes Flesh Eaters so interesting in that, realistically, apart from Bill putting up a couple of results, all their results have basically come in the last 4 weeks since the new book came out.
Yeah, and a lot of those second places, I mean, obviously there's a first place as well, but those second places and then third places, I think you're going to see them at podium often and consistently. Skaven didn't add anything. They went up, they got a couple of second places as well. I personally think you're going to see Skaven shoot up as time goes on. Realistically, I think what's really interesting with Skaven is you're going to see their win rate settle around the 50% mark, but you're going to see them win tournaments consistently.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, every time I've seen results from Skaven, there's everything from 1 win to 5 wins. Basically, there's always like a big spread, and it's just, I think, because 2 reasons. One, you can build the army in so many different ways.
Agreed.
Right, and then secondly is that apart from the endless spell, as you said, I think the army itself actually has some play to it. Like it takes a good player to make it work optimally.
We'll put a pin in that as a conversation for another day. Yeah. I don't know. Shooting is a non-skill based mechanic in the game. No offense, 40k players, but that's just having played quite a bit of 40k as well on top of Age of Sigmar that I do. It becomes just about target priority really, and stacking your buffs. But what's nice about Age of Sigmar is some of the shooting isn't too long range. But Skaven's is long range and the ability to teleport as well. I think at the minute you're seeing Skaven almost invest in too many toys, but I think they're gonna pump up eventually. They'll do better, in my opinion, as time goes on. They're at the start of what is going to be a horrifying future, in my opinion. Unless the General's Handbook puts the points up on the Vermin Lords, in which case I think they're probably going to do better.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think the Vermin Lords are good, but they're almost like a little bit of a trap. You're like, oh my god, I get 2 casts, I get 12 wounds. But then actually, if you start looking, you think, do I need that? Would another 3 Storm Fiends be good? Would another Warp Lightning Cannon be good? There's loads of options in that book, so they're pumping up. In my opinion, it's Beast of Chaos though dropping down, but that's only because the other 2 armies have jumped up. But we haven't seen Dan the Man playing with his Beast of Chaos, and he seems to be the only one who makes it work, right?
Yeah, or that particular list he's the only one that's podiumed with them as far as the 2 first places there. But that particular list has been doing quite well. A lot of 4-1s Adepticon coming up, as we'll see, and a lot of 4-1s other places. I think Mark Wildman.
Yes, but no one else podiumed, right? So that is Dan Bradshaw's. That's his stat right there. He is a one-man stat generating machine. So congratulations to him. So he's got to be really chuffed with that. Yes, although I did see Mr. Mark Wildman was selling his Enlightened and Zangor on the internet, so I would almost certainly assume that they're going to get both Enlightened and Zangor getting a points increase in General's Handbook. Now's the time, everyone, if you want to start following your favourite playtesters on Twitter, and you will really start to be able to understand what points changes are coming very soon.
Is this like is this the insider trading of Age of Sigmar? Is that what we've stumbled upon?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I sell your Zangor now, is my opinion. We'll see. And trade in for Centigores, maybe, or more gore. Or Bestigor. It'd be cool if Bestigor got cheaper. Anyway, that's just a silly conversation. Seraphon, look at them jumping up 5 places because of that 1 win. Go on.
Yeah, it's all it takes. Like, literally, if there's a person out there and they're playing their army week after week, they've got their Dispossessed, but we like to make fun of every week here in the corner. If they get it out and they go to an event and they come first, they're on the table, and that's their result, right? So that's Sam pushing those numbers up. Yeah, with that first place at Adepticon.
That's excellent, realistically. So big love to him. Okay, should we move on to Adepticon analysis?
I think this is what everyone's here for. Yeah, let's have a look. So we're going to start with the pre-Adepticon analysis. So this is, I know it's happened already, but this is what Adepticon looked like going into the event as far as what the meta percentages were.
Yeah. Okay, so realistically, the most obvious thing there is Stormcast Eternals were the most popular faction, with Legion of Gash just jumping below. So my there we go, Ideneth. So my anecdotal evidence, which is why I prefer the stats, to be honest. And again, as always, thank you LLV for doing them. I anecdotally walked around and was like, there are a lot of eels at this event. That could have just been because the very first game I played 30, but there seemed to be a lot of Ideneth players, and 10's not bad. Stormcast Eternals armies, a lot of those were Longstrike Raptor lists, or at least the ones that were on the top tables going into day 2 were Longstrike Raptor lists. So
there was Cachetta actually 5-0'd with his Longstrike Raptor list. Stormcast Eternals.
Yeah, really strong, really strong. Not great against bodies. In my opinion, but still just a solid army, realistically. So yeah, cool. Long strikes did good, but they were the most popular. Legions still good. So that's interesting. Blades of Corn, that's cool. Gloomspite though. There we go. So we're finally starting to see the rise of the Gloomspite playing more and more, right?
Yeah. I think what's interesting about Adepticon is it actually it's not too far off what we see as the so those chart we're looking at here also lists the pre-Adepticon world AOS meta, and it's not actually too dissimilar. Everything's within 1-2% of what we see as a world meta.
And is that a fair variance? Is that like that's basically nothing effectively?
About 1% is fair. When the ones I'd start looking at is anything over 2%. So we did see, if we're going to say what we saw more or less of, going through the chart here, we saw less Legions of Nagash at minus 2.6% difference to the meta. And we saw more Daughters, more Flesh Eaters, and more Skaven, particularly at this event, with all three of those armies coming at an extra 2% of the meta.
Yeah, that makes sense. I imagine lots of people have planned to go to Adepticon beforehand, and Daughters of Cain armies, you're bringing it to win it, in my opinion. Flesh Eaters, I'd say the same. Skaven, I'd say the same. So I'd say all three of those armies, their rise in popularity in that case is because people are bringing those armies because they want to win. They're not. I wouldn't say that they're really hobby armies. That's not me trying to be rude. I just think that's the case. However, I do like the fact that there's a 1.5% increase on Beast Claw Raiders. All right.
Yeah, and I have to call somebody out here because I don't know if he's trolling me. There's actually, as you'll see there, a Git mob player.
Oh, Warboss Timmy.
A fellow by the name of Tim Holbrook, Warboss Timmy.
Yeah. Skarsnik's brother.
Yeah, he kept saying going into Adepticon, I hope you've got room to add Gitmob to your table. And I thought he was joking, and then I saw the stat come through. I'm like, damn, I have to change all my tables. So yeah, thanks for that, Timmy. That took me an extra half an hour to rejig everything. Thanks very much for that.
He'll be over the moon about that. I got to hang out with him at Adepticon. Great fella. He's also, I thought he was two different people. I thought Warboss Timmy and Skarsnik's brother were different people. Turns out they're the same person. Yeah. And what was nice is I liked both people in both places where I interacted with them, one on WhatsApp, one on Twitter. And then when they got coalesced into one person, I was like, oh, cool. And now knowing that he's made you just do a bit of extra work makes me, I think I've warmed to him more because of it. And I know for a fact that you, Riley, will be smiling as well. You'll be like, oh, you git.
I'm smiling on the inside, yeah. Every week we tell people to go and get their armies out, right? We always tell the dispossessed players and things to go and play their armies, so yeah.
And your Wanderers player, there was a one Wanderers player there?
I already had them logged. Gitmob I actually had to actually add, and I'm sure it was like, it's probably the only army that I haven't added at this point. I'm pretty sure he just trolled through every army and looked which one wasn't in the stats and went, that's going to be my Adepticon army. So.
I think anyone called Warboss Timmy or Skarsnik's brother is probably no. He's deeply into the faction.
Although he could have played Moon Clan, so yeah. Bugger.
And Flesh Eater Court's obviously a lot more popular, 2.4% more popular. So I think that's something to take away.
So here's interesting. Yeah. Look at Legions of Nagash. They're down 2.6.
Yeah.
Flesh Eater Court's up 2.4. And I know just a lot of random conversations I've had. There are a lot of death players that had kind of death models and did that switch. So that might be something to read into as far as the drop-off in Legions may have been the pickup in Flesh Eaters.
Yes, I would say Yeah, it's an easy transference over, right? They don't play too dissimilarly. Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon, which, by the way, is a pussycat now compared to the G cart.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just an easy switch over. So you're right. I think a lot of players already had those models and have traded for something that is arguably simpler to play, quicker to play, instead of having to continuously recycle a bunch of skeletons or reapers or whatever you might do. So yeah, I would agree with you. I think that there's probably a switch over there. I'd also like to point out again that 10 players took Ironeth Deepkin. So more than Nurgle, more than Sylvaneth, more than Beast of Chaos, more than Seraphon, more than Nighthorn, like 10, which is a significant percent. Like I think, and you could really feel the. I know it's not like it's about on average.
Yeah.
But when you
So I was
start to
gonna
get
say,
when you start to get events this size, you do really start to see how impactful that is. And they were just all eels, basically. There was one guy that wasn't eels. Yeah, Joey Pagano. There was no eel on Joey Pagano, but mainly eels.
I think when you've got a polarizing army like that does a very specific thing, it almost becomes more apparent when they're there in numbers. And this is AOS 2.2 numbers we're looking at. IDNF since AOS 2.2. I think after the FAQ and everybody saw that eels were safe to buy, they did jump up in numbers. When we look back at AOS 2.1, IDNF always used to be around the maybe 3% mark. So now we're seeing them up at like 5.5%, 6% mark at events. There's definitely been an increase since December.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to quickly also point out two other stats which are going to become relevant in the ongoing conversation of today. Is both Bone Splitters and Kharadron Overlords had a little bump in their representation, two armies of 4 each.
Yes.
So a 1%, so really an insignificant bump. But I do think that you're going to see that carried through. Bone Splitters took out Best Destruction. Kharadron Overlords always constantly prove a threat. So I think you're going to see that sort of long-range shooting. And as we saw that mirrored also in the Stormcast shooting, so in my opinion, there are 4 shooting armies really in the game. KO, Bone Splitters, Stormcast, and of course Skaven. Like that, I would say the good shooting armies. Although it's arguable the Zinchian shooting armies are a thing as well. I was having an amazing conversation actually on Monday morning with a Zinch player talking about the Exalted Keeper of Secrets, using a gun line, and going for the and way back the day, we're talking like Tournament 1 of Age of Sigmar. Dan Ford used to run a Zinch gun line, but it was magic. It was a magical gun line. He effectively is the reason there's the rule of 1 on casting spells. So I think that they potentially have that in them. They've got a lot of offensive magic. Couple that with endless spells, you really could see a Zinch army come through when it comes to shooting, to be honest. But yeah. it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, my thoughts, I think they're a little overpriced right now. If the general handbook has a change, even just a couple of points here and there, dropping things so you can just get a little more in your army, I think they could be a contender again. But yeah, what's nice about Adepticon is there was a nice spread of armies. If we look at the armies not represented, I mean, Scryer's Skaven now. Really, you're only looking at things like Free Peoples, Dispossessed, obviously. Like there's not many mainstream armies that were not represented at Adepticon, which is always nice to see.
Yeah, great to see, and it was a great event too. It was a great event. Right, let's go on to the winning.
So, yeah, let's look at how everybody did. So, big shout out to the tournament organizer Alex Gonzalez. None of this was actually tracked. AG, yeah.
AG in the house.
I forget his Twitter handle. I think it's at some kind of geek30 on Twitter. So, he went back through all the results because the tournament software that they have, because it's very heavy on tertiary and secondaries, as we mentioned earlier, it didn't actually track wins specifically. So he went back, manually did all and provided all this information for us. So thank you very much for that.
Oh, good man, AG, you superstar.
Yeah. So here we go, Adepticon 2019 analysis. The first table we're going to look at is sorted purely by 5 wins and then 4 wins. So this is looking at who did the best based on how many wins they got during the event. I have a little caveat to throw in here. You'll notice everything we've looked at so far has said 182 players. That's how many players registered for the event. By day 2, there were some drops, and how many players actually finished the event was 156.
Yeah, 30 drops.
Yeah, 30. Yeah, basically. So what I've done is when we're looking at percentages and numbers, we're looking at that 156.
Yeah.
Because we can't be putting an army and
I agree.
Played one game and then won one game. So that's what
I agree. Yeah, good decision.
Interesting little tidbit. The most drops was Gloomspite Gits with 4 players. Just off the. I just thought that was kind of characterful. That
they're drunk somewhere.
Well, so they all ran away.
Yeah, they're drunk somewhere, not paying attention to the game. I'm really proud that Nathan isn't one of those guys. He committed to being there, so that's good. Congratulations. That's good. Yeah, they're just all with the Ale Guzzler Gargants getting drunk somewhere.
That's funny. Yeah. So we know that Seraphon took down the event, followed by Skaven and Daughters of Cain. Legions of Nagash. But as we see by actual what wins armies put up, Daughters of Cain actually did the best as far as that stat's concerned.
Yes.
Followed by Flesh Eaters and then Legions. So
five of those armies of the 10, so half of them went 4-1.
Yes.
Just crazy. With another one winning 5, so 60% 4 or more. That's just brilliant, realistically. And what's nice is even that impressive result is like it lowers the world versus the world percentage.
Yeah.
That one win guy should have really just got one better.
Guy, yeah. I had to check the names. I was like, did Heinrad go to this tournament as well? Is he just going around getting one win at every tournament? So it wasn't Heinrad. Heinrad has another. There's Heinrad and whoever that one win person is. They're in a group of their own when it comes to Daughters of Cain stats.
Well, do you know what's really nice about the stats, LOV, is I know for a fact there are some people now who intentionally take armies to tank their stats. They're like, fuck this. Yeah, like these are going down. They lose 5 games because they've got that. Warhammer players are narrative gamers at heart, no matter how competitive you are. They like a story, and they love the idea of bringing around the worldwide stats, I imagine. And that's what I'm giving that guy. I'm giving him the respect that he's done that on purpose.
Michael Goodrich, you did that on purpose.
You did that. You narrative gamer. You intentionally bringing the stats down. You're like, I don't want these guys at the top or these ladies at the top anymore. Their Flesh Eater Courts, they won. They went 5-0, 3 4-1s, and then 5 3-2s. Again, something to point out is one of the scenarios was Knife to the Heart, and that does mean that you tend to end up with quite a few minors.
Yes.
And Flesh Eaters, they probably are quite prepped to do Knife to the Heart because they've got those mobile dragons. But that still said, it's not the easiest one to win for any army.
No. I do like that as a separator, FYI. I like a Knife to the Heart around either round 3 or round 4, just to actually, especially in bigger events, like we saw with San was the only player that came out with 5 full major wins. It helps that awkwardness where you get 3 or 4 people on 5-0, all max wins at the end of a tournament.
Yeah, at the doubles event on the Wednesday, we got 3rd best sports, but that was 3rd best sports as part of a 54-way tie.
Right, exactly.
which is ludicrous, but also great sports. Everyone, I really respect that. Fantastic. I would argue that events going beyond 200, I probably would put 2 scenarios like that in. Something like Knife to the Heart, something like Border War, Blood and Glory. Sorry, Blood and Glory.
Especially when there are only 5 games, right? You need something to start differentiating.
Yeah, and Blood and Glory is a really fun scenario anyway. In my opinion. So I'm really hoping for some more scenarios in General's Handbook as well. And again, hoping that they find some way to do another major minor setup. One of my games that ended up as a minor loss was because I had the minor win. but I don't really believe in minor wins. And then I pushed on for the major win, which turned into a minor loss. Now, some people would be comfortable with a minor win, but that's just not how you play Warhammer, right? You win or you lose. So it's ridiculous to ever try and be like, I'm comfortable with a minor win. Grow up.
We can see that right here, Rob. You are part of the stats for once. Legion of Asgore. We have 2 players.
Go me.
We're about midway down.
Yeah.
I can see your 3 wins right here, but a fellow beat you, 4 wins. If you'd taken that minor.
Yeah, well, it's not 4 whole wins, right?
Yeah,
and that's absolutely okay. I don't mind. I only played Flesh Eater Courts, and both of my opponents, one of them built War Scroll Builder and is an angel, and then Sean at Nuke Doctor on Twitter with Flesh Eater Courts. I played 2 incredibly tight tactical games, which was really fun. So I would rather them and lose than just take an army and walk across my opponent. Truth be told, so yeah, and also well done, my fellow Legion player. We were chatting to each other. There was just us 2, I think.
Yes, you're the only 2.
Yeah, we're the rock stars of that tournament. That was really fun.
Fantastic.
Just having a great time.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll hear all about that on Monday's show with Nathan. I'm looking forward to the full Adepticon wrap up. So.
Yeah,
but so keeping with the bigger picture, we've got. We said Legions and the Gash. Yeah, then we've got Skaven, Seraphon, Stormcast, and Beasts making up the rest of that top 10 there. Seraphon's up there, obviously, because of Sam's win. Overall, there were only 4 players. The rest of them went 3 or 2 wins.
I know Jeremy got 2. Jeremy got one of those 3 in those. Yeah, but again, like not very populous as a faction. So the fact that they snuck the win is something that you have to be aware of. And they've got a great mechanic for scoring objectives. And also, what the last scenario was relocation orb. And while while he had to battle through Knife to the Heart, Total Commitment, and a bunch of other scenarios to get to relocation orb, Seraphon is set up so nicely to win that scenario. So because of that, go on.
That one was streamed, and it was an uphill battle for the Daughters player. The Seraphon just controlled the board too much, and that swingy thing with the relocation orb, where if you control the turn and you've got that board control, it's very hard for somebody to win.
Absolutely, yeah, and again, Daughters tough matchup against Skinks because Seraphon, but what we really mean is Skinks. Is they don't fly. That's why they're not. That's why I've never been particularly concerned by them as a faction. And I know the stats say I should be, but I just never have, because they don't. They don't do something that I'm threatened.
It's overkill, right? You give them 10 skinks, they kill 10 skinks. Okay, here's 10 more, right? They're not gaining any ground. So
but yeah, solid play. And congratulations there, Stormcast. How did they end up, Stormcast? I'd be quite interested by that. So one went 5-0, and we talked about it was long strikes. Then the rest were on.
Rest was middling.
Yeah, middling. Or they're doing a little bit worse than 3-2, more 2 and 3, but yeah, around where they sat. That's quite interesting. And Skaven, they got 1 5-0, they got 1 4-0, and then they got 2 3-2s, and then 2 2 and 3s. So still doing well. Still like sat there with a 5-0, which I think again, and none of them. I mean, only 1 win. So they're doing better than not better, right?
Yeah, and we've been saying that since the Skaven book came out, that we said it in this show that we're always going to see that kind of bell curve of wins. There's always going to be someone with 5, 4, 3, 2. Like you'll see a gamut of different results because of how varied the book is, and you're still getting people bringing fluff choices as well, right? Or just armies they had before. But I think they will start, as you said, they'll start getting better as time goes on. You'll always see them in the podiums or up there at least.
Yeah. Also, I just quickly checked on our little darlings, Hostess and Ash. They only had 1 win on 3 and 2. So maybe everyone had the answer there, which I think is good. But what was nice about it, there being such a big field as well, you generally played a mixture of armies.
Yes.
It was like a little less condensed, although the double Flesh Eater Courts back to back for me was a little bit harsh. I won't lie to you.
A little bit harsh.
Especially with the 2 pilots I had to play. But overall, I had a fairly nice mix, which was good.
That's always great. Yeah, we something to pick out here. Another faction I thought did very well. If you look at Beasts of Chaos, they didn't get any 5 wins, but out of
4 of them,
5 of their players,
yeah.
So out of 5 players, 4 of them went 4-1, which is a really good result.
Yeah, it is. It's a solid result, absolutely. And almost all the lists I saw were in light and heavy. And I know Jeff was running one of those. He's a great player. Rick, Joe. So there was like a bunch of really good players. Jeff was an amazing player, actually. I played him in the doubles. So there was a bunch of guys that had some really solid armies and know how to play them. Rick plays beasts as well, so he knows what he's up to. He only lost to Flesh Eater Courts. In fact, both, I can give you a little bit of anecdotal evidence. Both 2 of those Beasts of Chaos armies were beaten by one of the Flesh Eater Courts army that I lost to.
Ah, interesting.
So it really was kind of a Flesh Eater Courts like whomping, and they stopped the Beast of Chaos ascending even further realistically. So yeah, it's an interesting stat, right? Well, interesting little kind of like play by play.
Yeah, exactly. A couple more pickouts here. We've got IDNF Deacon. We mentioned, representation, a difficult army for people to face, but they did reasonable. Out of 10 players, mostly getting 3 wins out of 5. 2 players on 4 wins, 3 players on 3 wins, and then 2s and 1s. But with past results, I'd have thought they'd have been a little higher than that going into the event personally.
Yes. Yeah. I would think maybe they would have been a little bit higher, but
yeah. Gloomspite Gits, a book that had lots of potential. Maybe we haven't seen its full potential, but still not firing right now. It's got a spread mostly in its 2 wins. Do we know how Nathan did at the tournament?
Yeah, 3-2.
3-2. So there was 2 players making up 3-2, 1 player making up 4-1. So Nathan is a part of those numbers now as well, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And shout out to the lone Caradron player going 4-1 as well. Caradron had 4 players. 2 players got 1 win. 1 player got 2 wins, and 1 managed that sneaky 4-1, which is always good to see with an army that's widely regarded as kind of subpar at the moment, right?
Yeah, well, it's got a mobility issue because to go and claim objectives because it's not sustainable. It doesn't have summoning, anti-magic. But yeah, if you get the right matchups, or not because they're easy matchups, just because you're like, okay, I can shoot the key parts, and that's quite useful. I think KO have got a place inside the game currently. They're just probably not the most engaging to play with.
Right.
Because their aggro is all kind of like sit back aggro. You like if your opponent's got the opportunity to just jump at you or charge you in the first turn, you can feel quite hemmed in as a Caradron Overlord player, as a gunline player. But they've got the range and they've got the options to defeat a lot of problems that we see inside the game. So they're almost necessary. So if you guys are out there and you like little fellas with guns, can I interest you in a Caradron Overlord's army? I don't have one, but can I interest you in maybe going and getting one? Because we need you guys to shoot Terrorgeist out of the sky. Don't forget you get rerolls against monsters and things that fly, so it's quite useful.
The internal balance, that's great.
Yeah, just encourage people, please. Could you? So next up.
Yeah, so we'll stick with Adepticon. I took the information, I just did something slightly different because I knew it would put a smile on your face and it gives an interesting, different look at the tournament as well. So the next table we're going to look at, same numbers, same Adepticon analysis, but now it's been sorted by purely match win percentage.
Okay. Oh my God. And I'm at the top.
Look who's at the top.
If only I'd have kept that minor, I could have made those numbers ridiculous.
That would have been 80% as opposed to 70%.
Thank you so much for ganking the stats for me, just so I got something to claim. Yes, best performing faction. All right.
Yeah. As far as the match win percentage, so
my fellow Legion player, whoever you are out there, I forgot your name. I met you and we had a nice time, but you're an angel. Well done.
Nathan Maurer is his name.
Nathan, you're a superstar. Well done, us. Look at that. We're so good. It's mainly because no one knows how to play against us, but we're still so good. Cheers for that, LLB. That's chuffed me.
Yeah, no, well, it gives a good indication because I think a good measure is going 5-1 and 4-1, but it's also quite interesting to see.
How the
And
whole
there are
faction
gonna
did under different
yeah,
pilots.
and let's be honest, like there's only two of you, so
It's
it's
an
going to be
aberrant
affected
stat.
more.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's
I,
yes,
I think when we start looking at beasts and daughters, which are the next two down, you got 5 players with beasts, 10 players with daughters. Uh, Beast getting a 68% win ratio and daughters getting a 66% ratio is very telling, right?
yeah. I would say the Beasts of Chaos aren't like a narratively particularly popular faction. I don't think when the book came out they really gripped people's imagination. And if you are one of the players out there where it did grip you, I apologize. This is just kind of like an overarching opinion piece. But I think people have picked up Beast of Chaos because mechanically they can win games. They've seen people win tournaments with them. They understand that there's some strengths there, especially in the Enlightened and the Zangor. And they've got a cool summoning mechanic as well. A lot of those lists tended to use the command ability to use command points to stack extra summoning points and then have a pretty crazy, and then the Aether Quartz brooch. I saw that on at least 2 builds, and the ability to just have like a bunch of extra points to summon really early, which is really impactful. But you're right, that is actually really impressive. 5 players with a 70% win rate is really. But then, almost arguably, you would say that. The more players you had, like Daughters of Cain with 10, you would think that they would start to settle around the 50 mark. But still
Yeah,
being the third best performing faction is actually really telling.
yeah, yeah. The other telling one, obviously, above. I mean, we've got Bone Splitters next, but it again, it's only 4 players, but um, still a great number to have there. Flesh Eaters is the other telling one to me. You've got 11 players, 7% of them matter, and they're still coming away with a 62% win ratio across a tournament, which is huge, right?
Yeah, which in a very ad hoc way, like a very ham-handed way of saying it, that's not very good. Effectively, you're saying that they're a 3-2 army, just based on that
Yeah,
information, like almost as a guarantee. Like not
yeah,
actually, but yeah, not actually those facts. So don't like listen to this and go, I only
yeah.
want 2. But yeah,
We've seen that happen multiple tournaments since the book has come out. It is what's really telling. It's not like, oh, Adepticon they did 62%. 62% is actually a little lower than they have been posting in previous tournaments, just for people out there. So I think people are starting to find ways to beat them, which is why you're seeing maybe a little more 3-2s and maybe some 2-3s sneaking in. But players that know what they're doing with that army, it's crazy. So
yeah.
that's
Also, one of the things I'd like to point out is the Idneth Deepkin stat being around the 50% mark. I'd say that's spot on. I think
yeah.
I think honestly that's an army that either wins or it loses,
Mm-hmm.
because almost always they're committed to be super aggro,
Yeah.
and sometimes people are just set up to defend against that kind of aggro.
So oddly enough, when you're looking at such a small amount of numbers, we're looking at 156 numbers here.
Yeah,
We just mentioned if you look at the middle of the table there, most of the armies that are kind of
popular.
popular, yeah. So we're talking basically from like 6% to kind of 12% attendance. That's where you'd expect them to be because you get good players and bad players and everything kind of averages out
Uh-huh.
during the event.
Yeah, good
So
matchups, bad matchups. Yeah, the whole thing.
exactly. So that's why when you see a Fleshier Courts and a Daughters of Cain if you look at the rest of the factions up there, Legion of Asgore 2 players, Beast of Chaos 5 players, that they're more swingy. So you expect to see more of a higher match win or a lower match win. You see the same at the bottom of the table, right? So when you get people breaking away from the pack like Daughters and Flesh Eaters, that's when I think you can start to say, looking at the numbers, those 2 armies are very good.
Yeah, that's actually a really nice way of looking at it, actually. To be honest, yeah, you would expect, like we said, you would expect the most populous to be sat in that 50% mark in the middle. So if something popular like Flesh Eater Courts and Beast of Chaos, with all the other numbers being a bit aberrant, are so far up that kind of top bracket, then actually there's something to note there and something to be aware of for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the only thing you could draw a parallel kind of would be if we look at the bottom end of the table, right? So every army that's done very poorly has only had 1 or 2 players, and then you've got Beastclaw Raiders there with 4 players. So that to me says Beastclaw Raiders struggle.
Yes, they do. They are rubbish. Although I did see the most amusing Facebook post yesterday from a gentleman being like, "Have you seen that you can do 6 mortal wounds from a Thunder Tusk? Yeah, how is this not broken?" And then I was just like, "Oh, you sweet summer child! Like, don't worry about it. Like, you sweetheart. There's so much worse." But yeah, I think they need loads of help and loads of love.
Yeah.
To be honest, on those Beastclaw Raiders, yeah.
And shout out to Mick Wendell, the Gutbuster King.
The man himself.
Whoever it is playing Gutbusters at Adepticon, he let the team down there. He 1 player, 0 wins. Gutbusters were officially the worst army at Adepticon.
Yeah. Oh my god.
0 match win percentage for Gutbusters.
Oh, I feel so sorry for him. Oh, okay. All right. So next
what though? At least he stuck it out. There are 30-ish players that didn't see it today too. For whatever reason, this Gutbuster player, he was 0-3 going into day 2, and he still turned up at the table and played his game. So you've got to applaud that.
Yeah, I absolutely. If you take a kick and take it like a true hero, yeah, and goes, at least he got to eat some stuff. Probably he's fine.
Yeah.
Right. The overall breakdown. Have we as much changed in the 2.2 breakdown?
Yeah, Flesh Eaters and Daughters of Cain just keep creeping up. So that's the biggest change. Host of Slanesh have creeped up a little bit in that table as well. Legions are just at the top because of the pure number of 5 wins. But I mean, Flesh Eaters, from not being out that long, they only need to do 5. They only need to take 5+ wins 5 more times, and we've seen Legions really been putting up those 5+ wins recently. So it's just crazy how much numbers Flesh Eater Courts have put up in such a short period of time.
Yeah, and if you guys go back and listen to the release of the Gloomspite Gitz Battle Tome, listen to the stat shows for those kind of like 3 or 4 weeks afterwards, you'll hear us being like, where are the Gloomspite lists? Oh, Gloomspite wins. And the reason we keep mentioning Flesh Eaters is because they're having an impact straight away on the top tables in a way that the Gloomspite book didn't and hasn't so far. And maybe it's a bit of a Beast of Chaos scenario where we got to wait for it to happen. But maybe. Like we keep mentioning it, and you're impressed by the numbers, as am I, because they are just very, very good. Arguably, the Ghoul King on Terrorgeist is at the stage of being broken, but it's absolutely something you're going to have to think about when you're playing games of Match Play Warhammer.
Yes, yeah, you have to. If you want to, yeah. If you're going into day 2, 3-0, and you've not played a Flesh Eater Courts yet, you're pretty odds-on favourite to be playing a Flesh Eater Courts player at that point. Just
because they're also quite they're not like a Daughters where when Daughters of Cain were in their ascendancy, which is arguable, they're still in their ascent, like they're still at the top. That they clawed their way to the top and then they just stuck at the top. Realistically,
they still have the best match win percentage across Age of Sigmar, even 2.2, even with little representation, 68% match win percentage. But it is a little bit of a false fake news. Flesh Eater Courts match win percentage does include pre-battle tome. So I think I said this before. If I take out all the pre-battle tome stuff with Flesh Eater Courts, their match win percentage since their book came out is actually just a bit over 70% at this point.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, fair point and well made, I'd say. Yeah, I think, but sorry, what I was saying was with Daughters is they generally, as is stated there, like I know that they've got the same as Flesh Eaters in that 4.7% representation, but they were always usually, they got more popular moving towards Christmas, but they were always usually like quite underrepresented, but would always do really well. So there was only a couple of armies. So sometimes you would skip the Daughters army, and you could if the field was big enough. But at this stage, I don't think you're going to skip the Flesh Eater Courts army. I think they're going to be more popular than Daughters. Much easier to put together, much easier to put on the tabletop. So there's going to be more of them, and there'll be more of them as things like this stats show are going to do. It's going to encourage someone. There's someone out there going, are you telling me I can just win tournaments with an army? Oh my god! So
and it's cheap.
And it's cheap, yeah. So I think you'll see maybe more of them, or you'll see more counters to them, which will change stuff up as well.
We're going to see some of that coming up here in a bit. But one last point on Flesh Eaters: the meta 4.7%. Again, because going into the new book, that was like hovering around the 1% mark. That is a bit of a false stat. If we take the new book percentage, if you look at the past events, they've been closer to like the 6-7% of representation at tournaments.
Which was always like a Sylvaneth kind of like Sylvaneth and Khorne were usually around that kind of level, right? Generally.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting. To be honest, because I would say that puts them in what I would consider to be a very popular faction. So yeah, okay, all right, cool. I love that bit. That bit always makes me interested because I'm like, what am I going to face? Especially going into day 2. If you win 3 games, I think it's probably easier to try and plan for games 4 and 5 than it is to plan for games 1, 2, and 3.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, if you're planning a tournament, you take this table we're looking at right now, which is the 2.2 overall breakdown. You can find it on the Honest Wargamer if you're listening to the Honest Wargamer website, if you're listening to the podcast here. But if you just go down that murderer's row of factions there in the top 10, right? Legions, Flesh Eaters, Daughters, Stormcast, Idoneth, Maggot King, Beasts, Skaven, Slaanesh, Gloomspite, Khorne. You're going to play those armies, right? Like these are armies that keep coming up in conversations, armies we keep seeing. These are all popular armies and they're all doing quite well to be at the top of that table. So,
yeah. Okay. Next up, 2.1, 2.2. The differences?
Just a quick comparison. Yeah, see how things are doing. So, some aberrants in here. Daughters isn't an aberrant. They're at the top. They're doing the best. They did the best in 2.1. They're doing the best in 2.2. Again, one could argue that if I took out the pre-Battle Tome Flesh Eater Courts information, they would be a little bit higher, maybe up there with Daughters. But we're reporting it as it is right now, so they're not. Phoenix Temple are the next best performing comparative faction in AOS 2 from AOS 1 to 2. Although they've only really got 2 players that play them, so and we've seen Legion of Asgore again, thanks to you and Nathan there, giving some Nathan Maurer giving some percentage points. They've brought them back up at the table.
Yeah, don't worry. I know Gabriel's going to do some as well. There's going to be some Legion players, and we pose some problems as well. I think I'm going to go more shooting heavy with my army than I did Adepticon. Just to deal with those Ghoul Kings. So I think that's going to be really interesting. So there's some legs in that army, I think.
Yeah, but it's very low represented. I mean, we're talking, if you look at Phoenix Temple, it's got 0.3% representation. Legion of Asgore 0.8. So if we take it, if we let's say we take
they've
out
got less popular though. What the hell?
Yeah, crazy, right?
Yeah.
Let's say we take out anything less than 1% and look at what it would look like after that as far as performing factions currently. Daughters of Cain still top. Then would be Hosts of Slaanesh, which is our kind of little our baby there, chugging along, doing well, as we've been saying since the start of 2.2. Idoneth Deepkin, Legions of Nagash, Flesh Eater Courts, Beasts, Skaven. So I think that's more representative, those 5 armies, of what kind of the gestalt of what is doing well in the scene right now. If you take out those 2 aberrants of Phoenix Temple and Legions of Asgore.
It's interesting we call it. It's interesting the terminology scene, right?
Scene, yeah.
Yeah, that's wrong, right? Because it's sport.
In events.
Sport,
possibly.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. No, that's info. So next up, AOS and Zach. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's basically that's it. That's the stats. That's everything that's happened
You
up till
smiling?
this
You sound
point.
like you're smiling and chuckling right now. I've made you chuckle, which I enjoy.
Yeah, I've got a good T-spots, I think is the term you're looking for, right?
I enjoy making you laugh. Good. All right. Yeah, Anzac 2019 analysis. What
And
we
now,
got?
yeah, so we just went through everything. We looked at how good Flesh Eater Courts are doing. We looked at how good Daughters of Cain's doing. We looked at how much people are playing Legions and Stormcast, and then we go down under, and we look at the meta percentage of the coming up, actually starting today, because it's in the future in Australia. Caradron Overlords are topping the charts at a massive 12% of the meta for the Anzac.
There we go. That's right. It's because it's a country of criminals, and so it makes sense that they really like the pirates. That makes loads of sense.
Pirate dwarfs.
Yeah, but
followed by Night.
Yeah, Nighthaunt's an interesting choice. I like that. Both me and Tom Lyons seem to think that Nighthaunt are a thing. So we spoke about that quite a bit at the weekend. So yeah, I like that both of those two underrepresented factions are going to be there. What's really cool as well is KO have got some really good rend on all their weapons, and the Nighthaunt are going to ignore it. So like the KO players might walk away from that event being like, I couldn't beat the Nighthaunt. It's just like, well, yeah, there's not normally that many Nighthaunt. There's also there's a Legion of Asgore player there. One Iron Jaws, one Seraphon, one Disciples of Zenith. So yeah, not a massive tournament, 31 players. But the Order Serpentis choice, cute.
Order Serpentis, Order Draconis, Legions of Asgore, Slaves to Darkness. I mean, the Australians, just every time I see an Australian event, it's more off the wall than the next one. I'm wondering if the Caradron decided to turn up in numbers because of all the Flesh Eaters, but there's only 2 Flesh Eater Court players at this event, so they're going to get all the Nighthaunt players instead, it seems.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. And 2 Skaven players. I still got my money on the Skaven, to be honest, but rooting for Legion of Asgore, obviously. And then secretly, I think I'm rooting for the Nighthaunt.
Yeah, they've been having a tough time recently. They're only 40% win rate. The book's just so fragile, I guess is the best way to describe it, when you're comparing it to things that are out now. It's not even a joke to compare it to Flesh Eater Courts at this point, right? It's just
I just think it's a combat army that has to play the combat game, and it's arguable it doesn't have the tools that all the other combat armies have, or the speed. But then again, like with Seraphon, maybe it's a conversation about readdressing it. Maybe it's not an army that wins, like through damage. Maybe there's another process in the way to orientate it. That said, it's difficult, and some of the choices, like Chainrasp Horde, like it could be a really good Horde army. Apart from the Chainrasp Horde models are so expensive, and convincing people to part money for an army that's just going to sit there, as opposed to part money for witch elves that are going to just blend things. Like, I could see what I'd rather spend my money on, right? I'd rather be enacting damage as opposed to just receiving damage. And
I've heard it. I mean, even if you play the objective game with Nighthaunt, I've heard from a lot of Nighthaunt players that even that's difficult when the objectives are spread out, because your army is so interlaced with one another as far as like control zones and buff zones of your characters. It's not like a Seraphon army where you can just send 20 skinks over here and a Bastillodon over there.
And no, that's not true. That's not true. That's just because that's the way they've been building it currently.
Right, yeah, that's a good point.
There are options, but sometimes you have to go straight back to you have to build it the ground up, right? And sometimes problematically, both the narrative and also the way some of the synergies, like for instance, the charging gets you 2 rounds of combat, makes you feel like you should be charging, right? As an allegiance ability, but maybe that's just not what it's there for.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, or maybe that's a trap. So maybe there's like a ground up reworking that someone has to go through, and I'm sure someone will post some decent results with Nighthaunt at some point.
Yeah, we see they do crop up, right? You get the tournament wins here and there. You get the 4-1s and 5-0s, but they happen sporadically, and you could almost say that they happen because of the mechanic is that. Because when you roll those 10s, you're going to win, right? No one's gonna live through like a 2 combat phase with a Grimghast Horde. It just, you're dead if you roll 10. But it's the games you don't roll 10 that you're going to struggle on. At least how people are building currently, as we said. So
yeah, but excited to see how they do. Still sneakily got my votes in on the Skaven and the Flesh Eaters, to be honest. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see if.
Good luck to all those players.
See if Caradron come out on top. They go into the tournament on top. Can they come out of it on top?
Yeah, join us next Tuesday to find out. Right, that's going to be the key. There we go. That's all of them so far. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, that's our lot. I guess we could say no Sylvaneth, no Daughters, no Beasts of Chaos, no Order at this event, which is also I always find it interesting what armies don't turn up to events as well. So
yeah, I'd say that's fair. I'd say that's very fair. No Sylvaneth. It's difficult to travel with Sylvaneth, right? I would say that's really impactful as well. Like so much of this information sometimes isn't done in a vacuum because there's international travelers, there's a bunch of other stuff. So it'd be quite cool. Like that'd be interesting actually as an article to do. It'd be like reasons you may or may not see armies at events. Travel being one of the big ones, like ease of travel. I know for a fact that the Loon Shrine is actually very difficult to travel with.
Now you've experienced it.
Well, yeah, having travelled with someone who's had to bring a Loon Shrine to an event, it's a very awkward model, very difficult. It's got lots of like protruding little bits on top of it. It's got a fairly solid structure to itself, but it does have lots of really small parts. So actually, it doesn't really fit in a KR multi-case particularly well.
Right. Yeah.
So it genuinely quite a challenging model to travel with, I find. Yeah, I think things like that might really impact the game in the future, especially as everyone's getting a scenery piece, right?
Yeah, the travel meta.
Yeah, first question, is going to be how easy will that be to travel with? So, and I think that always Sylvaneth is your first port of call. You're just like, okay, Sylvaneth. As always, LV, thank you so much for the stats and helping out.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's always fun.
You are a game changer, so we appreciate that a ton. Everyone who's been listening, thanks very much. If you want to leave comments, tell us what faction you play, tell us how you're doing, and if you're beating the stats or if you're responsible for the stats being low, let us know in the comments below, or tweet us or Facebook us. Make sure you share it around your local gaming groups. It's always quite important to do that because then, especially people can learn a lot about how their armies work, which I think is quite important, and they can know that. Okay, if they keep losing to their friend who's got Daughters of Cain, then everyone's losing to their friend who's got Daughters of Cain. So don't worry about it, and you don't have to kind of like abandon the game. You've just got to, work it through. So it can be a really therapeutic thing for people, I think. So give it a share to as many people as possible as you can.
Yeah, and I hear some great. I even saw a great story just this last week. Tom from Warhammer Weekly had seen the stats, and his comment was along the line, if I'd have just got that minor, or if I'd have just squeezed out that last win, I'd have pushed Daughters of Cain above Flesh Eaters. And it's those kind of stories that like keep me going, at least, as well. Just hearing all these, if I'd have done that, or the Darkling Coven player chuffed that he got 2 wins at an event, right? Because that's above what their punching weight, and just all those, whether it's at the bottom end of the tables or the top end. It's always great to hear those how players are impacting these stats as well. It's always something that I enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, thank you so much for just coercing the stats. So Legion of Asgore at the top of something. Yeah, that's what we're good. We're not normally top of the height in the top of the charts in height, but enthusiasm. That's what I make up for. So
there you go.
Yeah, that's really cool, and I like that. And I know it's helping me stick with a faction as well. Just the concept of just keeping the stats up. I remember shouting at Nathan at one point, being like, "Don't bring my stats down." But then obviously I brought the stats down, so that was fair. So anyway, LLV, you've been amazing. Thank you to everyone on Patreon and Twitch. Thank you for supporting the show and helping it be real. You guys are wonderful. We'll see you soon. Thank you very much.